The Wii U, the poor, misunderstood console who tried to do too much too soon and ended up disappointing everyone from consumers to developers and even Nintendo themselves. If you go off the paltry sales figures and the online narrative around the console, you'll likely think the Wii U is Nintendo's biggest failure. Luckily, the Virtual Boy exists to hold that crown. But even discounting the Virtual Boy, it's true the Wii U didn't live up to expectations. And that's a shame because it really is a great console that sadly many people missed out on. The best news is, it's only gotten better with age. I'll be honest with you. Like most people, I didn't own a Wii U during its manufacturing run. I know, not a real Nintendo fan. But that doesn't mean it doesn't still hold a special place in my heart. Because it does. This is the console that introduced me to console repair and modding. I bought this specifically to mod when the eShop closed back in March of 2023. And somehow, while looking for ways to mod this thing, I stumbled upon a video of someone fixing a console. But not just replacing a disk drive or a hard drive, they were actually removing shorted out chips, and it was absolutely mind-blowing that you could do that. After devouring several days worth of videos on the subject, I decided to try my hand at fixing consoles and started my other channel, Fix More Waste Less, which has been fantastic and a great experience. And if you want to see someone struggle to repair consoles, you should definitely check that out. Now you may be asking, why buy a console just to mod it? The answer is because doing that opened a whole new realm of possibilities and gave me access to games I never got to play and ones I thought locked behind an outrageous paywall. But we'll get to that in a moment. Before we can really talk about what makes the Wii U so great in 2025, let's look back at what made it not so great from 2012 to 2017. Everyone knows that the Wii U's launch was a bit lackluster. Personally, I wasn't as into Nintendo at that point as I'd previously been or am now. I absolutely loved my GameCube, one of my favorite consoles ever, and I had a Wii, but I didn't really love it. The games were okay, but the gimmick lost its shine pretty quickly. I did love the Virtual Console, which should hint at what I love about the Wii U so much. It was mind-blowing at the time, but the coolest thing ever to be able to play select NES, SNES, and N64 games on the Wii. I wasn't into emulation at that point, and it always seemed like it was more work than it was worth to try and get games to play in any stable way. Original hardware was still the best way to play those games, and still my favorite way to play games, if I'm being honest. But I never had a Super Nintendo, and I'd sadly gotten rid of my N64 at this point. So this was the perfect opportunity to play those games that I missed. But not long after the Wii came out, my playtime on it dwindled in favor of the 360. And by the time the Wii U came out, I'd sort of fallen out of the gaming scene. I know. Why are you still watching this video, right? I don't know, but if you are, might as well subscribe. The thing was, I'd graduated college, had a job and other things to focus on, still played a game or two here and there, but that was really it. I skipped for the first 5 years the next generation, the Xbox One, PS4, and the Wii U. So I missed most of the Wii U's life cycle. Not that I missed all that much. The console never really took off. I mean, you can see why. The ads for it were not great. Is it a Wii add-on? Is it a whole new console? Hard to tell for the casual gamer. It was more expensive than the Wii, starting at $300 for the base model and $350 for the deluxe, and the base model didn't come with the game like the beloved Wii Sports, which is definitely a step in the wrong direction. Hard to get people to buy a system that costs $50 more and doesn't come with a game. And by 2012, people understood storage way better than 2006. 8 gigabytes just wasn't going to cut it when you were encouraging people to download games. Now, true, Nintendo is way better at compressing their games, but still, the optics of the base model being 8 gigabytes when the Xbox One and PS4 were 500 were bad. And online gaming just wasn't as well supported on the Wii U as it was on the other consoles. This being a time when online gaming was really hitting its stride, for better or worse. The big gimmick for the Wii U was the gamepad, and while I actually love this thing and think it's one of Nintendo's best gimmicks, it has its flaws. Mainly that only one gamepad can be hooked up at a time. This meant only one player could really get the Wii U experience, and we all know Nintendo's big into local multiplayer games. They want the family to sit around the TV playing their games. But it's hard to do that when one person gets to have a certain experience and everyone else has another. The other main controllers remain the legacy Wii controllers. You had your Wii remotes, nunchucks, classic controllers. They did introduce a Wii U Pro controller, but there were several games that required the use of the gamepad to play, meaning the Pro controller wasn't an option for those single-player experiences. But then again, making the gamepad optional meant a lot of developers just ignored its unique role in gameplay. How can you design a game to uniquely utilize the gamepad when the Pro controller is an option? Instead of being tightly integrated into everything, it became nothing more than a second screen for maps or items, something you could see with the push of a button on a different controller on a different system. It wasn't exactly the game-changing experience Nintendo hoped for or promised. And third-party developers just didn't take the time or effort to build games around it, opting for generic ports or to not develop for the console at all. I mean, this is how many games came out for the Wii, and this is how many came out for the Wii U. It was also clear the casual gamer motion control gimmicks of the Wii had lost its appeal by the time the Wii U came out. Far too many people impulsively bought a Wii just to play Wii Sports or maybe a handful of other games, only to quickly realize they hadn't turned their console on for months. They weren't going to make that same mistake again, and I was one of them. And the more hardcore games had started to migrate over exclusively to PlayStation, Xbox, or PC, and the Wii U didn't do enough to entice them back. Call of Duty Ghosts released on the Wii U in 2013, and it's the last Call of Duty released on a Nintendo platform. That tells you something. It was a vicious cycle. Low sales led to a lack of support, and a lack of support eventually led to no sales. And Nintendo didn't help themselves all that much. I mean, think about it. What big name franchises received new mainline games? The best it got for Mario was Mario 3D World, which is a good game, but not really on the level of Galaxy or Mario 64. Metroid didn't have an original game released on it at all, and for Zelda, it was HD remakes of Twilight Princess and Wind Waker. They never developed a new game for Zelda on the Wii U. Well, not until Breath of the Wild, but that came out at the very end of the Wii U's life and at the launch of the Switch. And that helped propel the Switch to the success it has. Arguably, if Breath of the Wild had come out a year or two earlier, it might have helped bump up the Wii U sales figure, but by the time it did come out, the Wii U was on its way out. That all sounds very dreary, and you might be asking, I thought this was a video about how great the Wii U is. And it is. Despite all the missteps and all the failures, there are some pretty good games on the Wii U. While a lot have been ported to the Switch at this point, notably the two Zelda HD remakes have for some reason not come out. Maybe they'll come to Switch too, fingers crossed, but who knows. But then there are other games like Metroid Prime Trilogy that I know is a Wii game, but the Wii U plays it just fine. And the best thing is, a lot of these games are accessible right now, albeit by less than kosher means. Unfortunately, the physical copies of these games are starting to creep up there. I mean, there probably weren't a lot of Zelda Wind Waker HD copies in existence to begin with, and if you're looking for one now, you better be prepared to pay for it. But as I said at the beginning of this video, I bought the Wii U to mod, and by modding, you can play pretty much every Nintendo game that came out before the Switch on this console. That includes the HD remakes, Prime Trilogy, NES, SNES, N64, Game Boy Advance, and even DS games. Yes, the Wii U can play DS games, and it has two screens, and a touch screen. Now I know, that's not exactly above board, but hey, my thoughts on games are that if there's no way to directly buy the game from the developer or distributor, then what's the harm? Buying a copy of Wind Waker HD from some random person on eBay or in a loose box from GameStop doesn't give any money to Nintendo, and like I said, these games aren't available on the Switch. If they are, well, you should really play it on the Switch. It's gonna look better and play better. Like, 3D World is better on the Switch, but for many of those games still trapped on the Wii U, why not? Nintendo decided to shut down the eShop. That was their choice. Until they become available by some other means, I don't see the harm. As a single player console, the Wii U still does a decent job. A lot of these games can actually be played on the gamepad without the TV, which truly feels like the first iteration of the Switch. You can see where they took this idea of sitting down on your couch to play a game in your hand while also being able to play it on a TV and improved upon that with the next generation. The screen's not as vibrant, especially compared to the OLED, or big. It's 480p, so not even HD, but for 2012 it was good. In 2025 it's acceptable. When you consider the fact that many of the games you're likely to play on this were barely hitting 480p on original hardware, you can't be too upset. It has Wii support natively and can emulate NES, SNES, N64, Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and DS games. And with a bit of hackery, you can install homebrew apps like Nintendo to play your backed up GameCube games. The easiest way to add games to the console is through an app called Nuspli. I don't know. I'll let others explain it in more detail how you go about it, but it basically lets you download games to the Wii U, or preferably an external hard drive. I'm not advocating piracy, but who among us hasn't bought Super Mario Bros. At least once, if not several times? You own that game. So maybe, just maybe, it's time to dust off that old Wii U and see if there's anything you missed on the first go-round, or look online for one. There's nothing like having the majority of your favorite games playable on one system. The Switch came close thanks to the online service, but once that inevitably shuts down, it'll lose access to around 300 games. I'm sure hacks will fix that, but that, along with its lack of GameCube, Wii, Wii U, and DS support, leaves many games behind. For that reason, the Wii U remains the best all-in-one system for Nintendo game preservation. It's an unfortunate truth that there aren't a ton of them out there, and sadly, they're only going to start failing more and more. The gamepad can break, and there's a serious issue with the NANDs on certain consoles bricking the console. Though if you're prepared for it, you can likely save your console. I recommend everyone take the precautions on that. This is a unique console, and while Nintendo should have been rewarded for their unique effort and risks they took, they weren't. But they took the lessons learned and applied them to the next generation, and for that, they have been rewarded, as have we. Hopefully, they'll continue that streak with the Switch 2. But until then, I'm going to go play Wind Waker HD the only way possible on a Wii U. See you next time. Yeah, I suppose I could emulate it, but, original hardware.